Hi guys, and welcome to the absolute most serious possible video in all of the past, present, and future that's staying in. I'm going to explain as much of the Warhammer timeline as I care to at this moment, so here we go. In the beginning, we have the Cancer Men on their Cancer planet doing all their cancer stuff, and they're like, hey, this kind of sucks, let's get up into space and like look around and stuff. So they get up into space and they find Godfrog, and Godfrog is like, who are you? And they're like, hey, can we have immortality? And Godfrog is like, and so they go back to their planet to mope, and they're like, you know what, let's do a war about it. So they war the Godfrogs, and they get their asses beat. But then they notice there's something floating around their sun, and it's eating their sun. And it's like, let's ask that. That's clearly a god. And so they go ask that guy. His name is John McMost Trustworthy Name in the World. And they're like, hey, can you give us immortality? And John, the Deceiver Most Trustworthy, is like, yeah, I can absolutely do that. And so they're like, okay, cool, absolutely, let's do it. And so the Cancer Men get all put into the furnace, and they burn alive in the furnace. Who could have seen this coming? So suddenly the Cancer Men are all skeleton men now. It's the skeleton faction, necromancy. And so led by Trustworthy McCool Man and his gang of chuckle fucks, they go to war with the Godfrogs, and the Godfrogs are like, oh my gosh, make things until they stop killing us, and it fails. But they did manage to make the Orcs and the Eldar. And so the Skeleton Men are like, I really don't like being oppressed now. Their king is like, all right, I give all of my people freedom. Let's shoot the gods that gave us our immortality in the face. And so they do that, but it leaves them super drained of resources. And so the Orcs are not a problem. They're kind of just beating each other over the head. But the Eldar are a massive problem because they're this up-and-coming race, and they're catching up to their technological levels. And so they're like, hey, you know what? Let's just go to sleep. Let's go to sleep for like 65 million years. And so they do. And the Eldar are suddenly the biggest race in the galaxy right now. So what do they immediately do with that? Hedonism. A bunch of hedonism. It looks like ancient Greece over here with how much hedonism it's on a par. And then they just keep adding to the hedonism. There's more hedonism. There's a lot more hedonism. And suddenly, like a third of their race is like, you know what? I really don't want to do this. Let me go to my non-hedonism planet and live out in non-hedonism. So they do that. And then a bunch more time passes, and then another third of their race is like, you know what? I think those guys were right. Let's go on these ships and float around in space and not do hedonism stuff. So they go and do that. And the last third of their race, all in the hedonism planets, just keep doing the hedonism until suddenly, boom, bam, pop, they hedonismed a new god into existence. This new god immediately eats like 90% of their race because each of those 1/3 turned into like 1% each over the course of however much time between they left and then this happened. So like all of their planets get munched on except for the non-hedonism ones and the ones that are in the webway and the ones that are in space. And this starts the age called the Age of Strife. Now, during all of this, there's this little tiny race called humanity that was up and coming in the galaxy over all of this, though the Eldar kind of just overlooked them because they were, freeze a quote here, really not worth paying attention to because honestly, they really weren't. So over that time, they kind of just expanded across the stars, and when the Age of Strife happened, suddenly all their machines turned on them, and then demons started popping out of nowhere, so like this thing called Old Night, and they couldn't talk to each other planets, and so they were kind of just standing pat. So the Eldar's race is ripped apart. That might be important at some point, maybe, possibly. If you ask GW, it's not. But everybody shut up right now because we got to get to the coolest, absolutely totally coolest guy in the setting, Jimmy Space. So Jimmy John's Emperor is there on Earth. He's like, you know what? I got to take the reins here. I got to take control. So he takes control and he unites all of Earth once Old Night is over. And over this time, he creates these things called the Thunder Warriors and then the Custodes. And then he shoots all of the Thunder Warriors in the head and makes the Space Marines. And in order to make the Space Marines, he had to make the Primarchs first. And the Primarchs are made. And then suddenly this woman who is the Emperor's wife, shot all of the Primarchs into space while they were babies in their baby pods, possibly with the influence of the Chaos Gods. Who are those guys? Just don't worry about them. They won't come up as one of the most important threats in the universe, smile. And so Jimmy John Space is like, you know what? I gotta go find my sons, who are also tools, because I see them as tools. They're tools. I'm a totally good father. And so he starts flying across the stars. He first meets Mars, and he's like, you know what? You can keep your cult. I didn't let anybody else keep their cult, but you can because you make a big gun. And he starts bouncing all over the galaxy looking for all his sons, gathering up all his sons. There's one that's a wolf, one that's a dragon guy, one that's a bunch more stuff. Who cares about him? Suddenly everybody should care about them, though, because there's this one named Horse, and he hates his father. Except not really. He was kind of just tucked into this guy called Erebos. So Erebos tricks him into becoming evil, and he's like, you know what? I'm evil now. He comes across a bunch of his brothers that he knows are also going to want to be evil, and they're like, yes, absolutely. And he starts going about recruiting his other brothers because the Emperor blew up one of their favorite toys, so that one, him named Lorgar, he's like, yeah, I want to join you now. And so he gathers up all of the necessary guys, and he starts going on his heresy. And so all of the brothers that are not on the heresy, because Horus is the War Master, he goes to order them to go to this place called Isfahan 5. But before that, he blows up all the loyal soldiers to the Emperor on Isfahan 3, and then he goes to Isfahan 5, and the worst battle map in history takes place, and like four of the loyalist legions, who cares? This is obviously the most serious video in history, so a number of the loyalist legions get wiped out pretty much completely, and they go run, cry. One of them gets put into a maze by the Skinner man, and they forge across the stars to go do stuff. Some guy gets beheaded in this battle. Who cares about them? Nobody really cares about them. But what we care about is the perfect angel boy is now on this planet, and this planet he gets tricked by the Lorgar, and Lorgar tries to make him fall to chaos for this red angel bullshit, and he's like, no, I like my father. And Lorgar's like, well, fine, and he kind of just leaves off, and then that angel boy goes to find the Microsoft Excel boy, and the Microsoft Excel boy is already there with the Old English Knight boy who chased the Skinner man all the way to this planet now, and the Skinner man's kind of just having a party down on Gilliman's planet. Wait, who's Gilliman? Microsoft Excel. And so they get trapped by this big old space storm. And so they're like, you know what? Let's make a new emperor about it. And so they kind of secede from the empire because they don't actually know that the empire is still standing. So it's not really their fault, but everybody in the modern day empire is absolutely going to believe it's their fault when we get to that, GW, if you would stop dilly-dallying on your story. But we really can't pay attention to that right now because the Mongol guy is wondering if he will actually join the Emperor. And while that's happening, Wolf Guy is burning down Mage Guy's home planet, and Mage Guy gets his back broken and thrown into the warp and becomes Big Demon. And then one of Mage Guy's sons turns all of his sons into dust, and Magnus is like, well, fuck you, go away. Wait, who's Magnus again? Mage Guy. And then Lorgar is on the planet with Big Angry Boy, and Big Angry Boy is like, I'm so angry, and Lorgar's like, ooh, Red Angel time, and Red Angel time happens, and Gilliman's there for some fucking reason, and he gets almost murdered by now Demon Angry Guy, and then they go off to a different place, and then Fulgrim finds a cool sword, and that sword turns him into a snake. And then finally, Geneva Convention man is like, you know what, I don't like all of my psychers, I'm gonna kill them all, but on the behest of one of his cool sons, who is totally not a psyker, and that son who's totally not a psyker says, oh, hey, I'm a psyker. And he's like, he feels all betrayed, but he's like, if you kill me, I won't be able to navigate for us. And he's like, all right, fine, navigate for us. And so, totally cool, not suspicious son gets into the navigation seat and immediately drunk drives through several houses and crashes into the single worst garden you've ever seen in all of your life. This garden gives all of the Geneva Convention men horrible, terrible, awful, no good, very bad diseases. And then this big voice goes like, hey, you big Geneva Convention man, you should give yourself to me so I can save your sons. And Geneva Convention man's like, oh, fine. And so that's how the 4 main demon princes of chaos come about. And now that that's happened, Horus is going directly to Terra to go beat his father's head in. And they all get to Terra. Dorn's on Terra. Who's Door? Door brick wall. Built the palace, so they're like, they go to do war on Terra. And they do war on Terra, and then the things get all wibbly-warbly, timely-wimely. Smash cut, suddenly Gilliman's here, and suddenly all the wibbly-warbly, timely-wimely stuff is all broken because Horus died and the Emperor killed him, but the Emperor is also dead. So he has to get put on the comfy chair, which is not comfy at all. He's screaming eternally in agony. It is horrible. But he makes a light so everybody can see the light and travel around. That's how humans travel around in this universe. And Gilliman's all like, oh no, I'm so sad. I failed. I'm writing a book now. we all must follow this book now. I make a law. And like half of his surviving brothers are like, no, fuck you. And the other half is like, okay. And the ones that are like, no, fuck you, one of them goes off and bombs his own planet into oblivion. Another one goes off and just doesn't listen. And the last one goes off and is like, breaks himself against Perturabo's walls for a good, like, few years until Gilliman finally shows up and is like, okay, I get it. I get it. Just follow the book. Just follow the book. He's like, I was trying to show my sons I should also follow the book. And then they all chase their traitor brothers back into the Eye of Terror. There's this guy named Abaddon that takes control after Horus. He fails 13 times, but we won't get to that in this video because I've lost all of my patience for this totally serious, not cool, I mean very cool video that is totally serious and totally real and totally 100% accurate. So that's all for this video. Like, comment, and subscribe. Also, if this is worth any of those. And yeah, pretty much happy April Fools with this totally serious, 100% accurate. And this is how everything went down. There's no need to question it.